You people need to know your place." Victoria's words sliced through the air as she ground her heel into Imani's just-mopped floor, leaving a deliberate black mark. The cream-colored invitation hit Imani's cleaning cart with a slap. "You should come to our charity gala," Victoria Montgomery Prescott sneered, diamond bracelet catching the light. "The help is always welcome." Her laugh echoed down the marble corridor, sharp as breaking glass. Lemon cleaner mixed with Victoria's $800 Clive Christian perfume. Toxic, just like her smile. Victoria's Louboutin heel struck Imani's bucket. Crack. Water exploded across the floor, soaking Imani's worn shoes. "Clean that up before you leave. Board meeting at 7 a.m. Victoria turned, already dismissing the woman she'd just humiliated. Imani watched the water spread. 42 years old. Howard University MBA, executive housekeeping manager instead of business strategist. The cleaning expert with 3 patent-pending systems that could revolutionize commercial maintenance, invisible to the woman who'd just destroyed an hour of her work. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter Tasha. "Mom, remember what you always tell me? Walk into every room like you own it. When will you start doing the same?" Imani's fingers tightened around the mop handle, perhaps sooner than anyone expected. "I'll consider it," Imani said, voice steady despite the knot in her throat. Victoria froze mid-step, turning back with raised eyebrows. "Oh, honey, it's $5,000 a plate." Her smile sharpened. "I was just being... what's the word? Inclusive. Board diversity initiative and all that." Imani said nothing, already calculating how to remove the heel mark without damaging the marble. Some stains ran deeper than others. Pinnacle Tower housed Montgomery Industries' headquarters, an $8 billion commercial real estate empire built on acquisition and urban renewal. Hostile takeovers with smiling faces, projects that displaced communities while claiming to revitalize them. Imani knew this intimately. Before donning the Navy uniform with its embroidered Prestige Cleaning Services logo, she'd submitted her resume to Montgomery Industries. James Montgomery himself had rejected her. Not the right fit, he'd said, eyes barely scanning her qualifications. He didn't recognize her now. The uniform made her invisible. The boardroom needed special attention tonight. Pushing her cart through the service entrance, Imani found papers scattered across the polished table. Confidential acquisition targets 3 black-owned businesses struggling after pandemic losses. The notes were explicit. Leverage financial distress. Offer 30% below market. Emphasize their limited options. Something else caught her eye. Financial documents for Victoria's Charity Foundation. The Montgomery Future Leaders Fund. The numbers didn't align. Large donations entered, minimal distributions exited. Most funds transferred to offshore accounts labeled administrative expenses. Imani quietly snapped photos with her phone. Voices approached. Imani quickly arranged papers back into their folders, adjusting her posture into the submissive stance expected of cleaning staff. James Montgomery entered first silver-haired Brooks Brothers suit, Harvard Business School confidence. At 58, he'd built his father's modest real estate company into a corporate giant. Behind him, Victoria clung to his arm, 19 years his junior, her second marriage, his third. "The cleaning lady is still here," Victoria noted with a frown. James barely glanced at Imani. "Just work around us." "We won't be long. Will Imani remain invisible to these people who profit from stepping on others? Or has Victoria finally targeted the wrong woman?" Imani arrived early Monday morning to find Gerald Porter, owner of Prestige Cleaning Services, waiting in the service area. His usual smile was absent. "Montgomery Industries is reviewing all vendor relationships," he said, rubbing his forehead. 40% of our business, Imani." "I can't lose this contract." Imani's stomach dropped. "Did they say why?" "Apparently, someone complained about staff conduct." Gerald wouldn't meet her eyes. A board member's wife. The knot in Imani's chest tightened. Victoria's petty revenge for the gala exchange. I'll speak with her, Imani offered. No. Gerald's voice rose sharply. That's exactly what you can't do. Promise me you'll keep your head down. 16 families depend on this contract. Imani thought of her team, mostly immigrants and single parents working multiple jobs. Maria saving for her son's college. Abdul supporting relatives back home. Luis paying his wife's medical bills. I promise, she said quietly. The elevator doors opened. Diane Foster, Montgomery's CFO, stepped out in a charcoal suit, phone pressed to her ear. At 47, Diane was the company's highest-ranking woman, and the only executive who nodded at Imani, the rare acknowledgement that made Diane different. Understand the contract review, James, but slashing costs by hiring undocumented workers creates liability. Diane stopped, noticing Gerald. I'll call you back. Gerald introduced himself, hand extended. Diane's handshake was firm. Your team does exceptional work, Diane said, particularly Ms. Taylor's attention to detail. Gerald beamed. Imani's our best. MBA educated, if you can believe it. Something flickered in Diane's expression. Is that so? That afternoon, Imani overheard Victoria in James's office, voice carrying through the partially open door. Dash don't care about the liability. That cleaning woman looked at me disrespectfully. Find another service. Diane recommends against it, James replied. Something about worker protections. Since when do you care what Diane thinks? I want them gone. Imani slipped away, heart pounding. Her team 16 people with families, mortgages, medical bills, all because Victoria felt disrespected. Later, Imani restocked the executive kitchen while Victoria hosted lunch for her charity board. Victoria spotted her, eyes narrowing. Perfect timing, Victoria announced to her guests. Fresh coffee, please. Imani prepared the expensive single-origin brew. Victoria accepted her cup without acknowledgement, then deliberately tipped it over the freshly mopped floor while maintaining eye contact with Imani. Oops, Victoria said, lips curving. Accidents happen. Diane Foster observed the interaction from the doorway. When Victoria left, Diane approached Imani. Some stains run deeper than others, Mrs. Montgomery, Imani said quietly, mopping the coffee. But everything can be cleaned with the right solution. Diane's eyebrow raised slightly. Interesting perspective, Ms. Taylor will Imani be able to save dozens of jobs, including her own? After her shift ended, Imani remained in the empty building, transforming a forgotten maintenance closet into her workspace. 3 years of lunch breaks and overtime hours spent here, developing her patented cleaning system that combined eco-friendly solutions with ultra-efficient application methods. Lab tests showed 40% less water usage, 63% reduction in chemical waste, and 28% faster completion times. The closet held her dreams, carefully labeled samples, prototype applicators, binders of research and calculations. Tomorrow she'd meet with potential investors from Breakthrough Ventures. 5 rejections already, but this firm specialized in minority-owned businesses. Hope felt dangerous after so many disappointments. The door swung open suddenly. Victoria stood there, expression shifting from surprise to amusement. Working late? Victoria's gaze swept over Imani's presentation materials. What's all this? Imani straightened. Research project. Victoria picked up a prototype applicator. Playing inventor on company time? Her phone appeared in her hand. James will find this interesting. It's my lunch break, Imani said. And that's proprietary technology. Victoria snapped photos of Imani's diagrams and chemical formulas. Proprietary? A cleaning lady with patents? Her laugh was sharp. How adorable. Please don't touch those, Imani said, reaching for her binder as Victoria flipped through it. Or what? Victoria's voice hardened. You'll complain to HR? About the CEO's wife? She took more photos. Know your place. The next morning, Imani discovered her investor meeting canceled without explanation. By afternoon, Montgomery Industries announced a new sustainability initiative in commercial cleaning technology eerily similar to Imani's system. The press release featured Victoria prominently. Mrs. Montgomery Prescott has developed an innovative approach to environmentally responsible cleaning methods that will revolutionize the industry while supporting disadvantaged communities. Imani confronted Victoria in the executive restroom, finding her touching up her makeup. You stole my work, Imani said, blocking the door. Victoria barely glanced at her. I improved upon basic concepts anyone could have developed. I have documented proof of prior development, patent applications. Victoria turned, eyes cold. Who would believe a cleaning lady invented this over the CEO's wife? Know your place. Imani's phone recorded in her pocket. Victoria's voice, crystal clear. You've made a mistake, Imani said quietly. Victoria stepped closer. No, sweetheart. You have. Cross me again, and Prestige Cleaning loses more than just this contract. Will Imani's years of innovation be stolen by someone who's never worked a day in her life? 2 weeks later, Victoria hosted a pre-gala luncheon showcasing her charitable innovations. Gerald assigned Imani to staff the event, despite her objections. We can't afford to upset her more, he pleaded. Just keep your head down. The Watergate Hotel ballroom overflowed with wealthy donors and press. Imani served champagne, invisible as always. Victoria glowed under admiring attention, presenting Imani's cleaning system as her brainchild. My foundation identifies solutions for underprivileged communities, Victoria explained to a reporter. These cleaning methods provide safer working conditions while protecting the environment. When Victoria spotted Imani serving champagne, she waved her over. Everyone, meet my inspiration, Victoria announced, gripping Imani's shoulder and pushing her slightly downward. She's shown me how the underprivileged can be helped by my vision. Imani maintained her posture despite Victoria's hand forcing her into a servile position. The room applauded Victoria's compassion. Perhaps she could demonstrate the proper cleaning technique, Victoria suggested, eyes glittering with malice. Imani remained perfectly still, refusing to be baited. Another time, Victoria conceded when Imani didn't respond. She's shy. Afterward, Diane Foster approached Imani in the service corridor. Interesting presentation, Diane said. Those chemical formulations seemed quite technical. Imani remained silent. I've seen similar concepts before, Diane continued, in patent applications. Imani's head snapped up. Diane handed her a business card. My private number. Call me. Will Imani finally break under Victoria's escalating cruelty, or is she calculating something bigger? That evening, Imani's phone lit up with a text from her daughter, Tasha. Mom, I got it! Montgomery Industries Summer Associate Program. Pride and dread collided in Imani's chest. Tasha had worked relentlessly for this opportunity. 4.0 GPA at Spelman College, finance major, perfect for the prestigious internship that launched careers. Yet the thought of her daughter entering Victoria's orbit made Imani's skin crawl. Before Imani could respond, another message appeared. Why aren't you excited? This is what we've been working toward. I am excited, Imani replied. Let's celebrate tonight. 3 days later, Imani cleaned the executive parking garage level after hours. A Mercedes SUV screeched to a halt inches from her cart. Victoria emerged, face twisted with anger. Your daughter, she spat. Tasha Taylor, the new summer associate. Imani froze. What about her? Victoria moved closer, blocking Imani against the concrete wall. Did you think I wouldn't find out? That you could plant your daughter in my husband's company? She earned that position, Imani said. Top of her class. Spare me. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Here's what happens now. You behave appropriately. No more accusations, no attitude, or your ambitious daughter learns how the world really works for people like you. Are you threatening my child? I'm explaining consequences. Victoria's smile returned. Summer associates are evaluated subjectively. Such a shame when promising careers end before they begin. The Mercedes roared away, leaving Imani shaking in the echoing garage. Will Imani sacrifice her daughter's future to stand up to Victoria, or find another way to fight back? Imani's apartment walls closed in around her. Spread across her dining table, business plans, patent applications, rejection letters, 3 years of work, hope, and disappointment. Her cleaning uniform hung on the closet door opposite her framed MBA diploma. 2 worlds that never should have intersected. The modest 2-bedroom apartment in Anacostia had been home for 15 years. Every piece of furniture told a story of sacrifice. The couch purchased from a thrift store when Tasha was a toddler. The dining table where they'd shared meals and homework sessions. The desk where Imani had written her MBA thesis while Tasha slept. She buried her face in her hands. For years, she'd taught Tasha to stand tall, speak up, never let anyone diminish her worth while silently enduring Victoria's cruelty herself. The hypocrisy burned her throat like acid. The front door opened. Tasha dropped her backpack, excitement fading when she saw her mother's face. "What happened?" Tasha asked, moving to Imani's side. "Nothing," Imani said automatically. The protective lie. "Mom." Tasha's voice hardened. "Stop it. I'm not a child anymore." The story spilled out. Victoria's theft, the threatened contract, the implied threat against Tasha's internship. With each word, shame crawled up Imani's spine. She'd failed to protect her daughter after all. Tasha listened silently, then picked up Imani's Howard University diploma. "You've taught me to never let anyone make me feel small," Tasha said. "Why are you letting her do this to you?" "To us? It's complicated." "It's not." Tasha's eyes, so like her father's before he'd walked away 17 years ago, flashed with inherited determination. "You're stronger than this, woman. You always have been." Imani closed her eyes, remembering. 15 years earlier, Howard University MBA program. Professor Lawson's advanced corporate strategy class. Imani, sleep-deprived single mother, challenged the case study conclusion. "With respect, Professor, this acquisition strategy prioritizes short-term shareholder returns over sustainable growth." Professor Lawson's dismissive laugh. "Miss Taylor, perhaps focus on completing the assignment as written. Executive strategy may not be your natural strength." The implicit bias hung in the air. Several students shifted uncomfortably. "Actually," Imani continued, heart pounding but voice steady, "the financials in Appendix C show that this approach resulted in a 24% devaluation within 18 months. Alternative strategy on page 47 would have yielded 16% sustainable growth." Silence fell. Professor Lawson re-examined the documents. "Ms. Taylor is correct," came a voice from the back. "A guest lecturer, Diane Foster, rising star at Merrill Lynch. Excellent analysis." After class, Diane approached her. "You have sharp instincts. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Years later, Professor Lawson became Imani's strongest reference, telling employers, "She'll either clean up your balance sheet or your boardroom, but either way, you want her on your side." Doors still closed, interviews still ended with "not the right fit." But Imani had stood her ground then. The memory crystallized something inside her. She returned to the present, meeting Tasha's determined gaze. "You're right," Imani said finally. "This ends now." "Doe." Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Imani answered hesitantly. Miss Taylor? Diane Foster. Are you available to meet tomorrow? There's something we should discuss. They met at a small coffee shop 10 blocks from Montgomery Tower. No chance of being seen. Diane arrived in casual clothes, jeans, and a sweater instead of her usual tailored suit's hair pulled back. Minimal makeup, almost unrecognizable. Thank you for coming, Diane said, sliding into the booth. No handshake, no corporate pleasantries. Your message seemed urgent, Imani replied. Diane glanced around, then placed a leather portfolio on the table. I've been tracking Victoria's activities for months. Why? When the CFO identifies 7-figure administrative expenses with no documentation, it becomes my business. Diane opened the portfolio. Victoria's charity is a shell. Money goes in, very little comes out for actual charitable work. Tax fraud, among other things. Diane slid several documents across the table. Offshore accounts, falsified board minutes, forged signatures. Imani examined the evidence, donor funds traced to personal expenses. Designer clothing, jewelry, a vacation property in Turks and Caicos, all disguised as community outreach or administrative costs. Why show me this? Sometimes the most powerful position is the one nobody notices, Diane said. You see everything from where you stand, don't you? Imani studied Diane's face. What do you want? Evidence I can't access. Conversations I'm not privy to. Board meetings where I'm conveniently excluded. You want me to spy for you? I want justice. Diane's voice hardened. James is destroying what could be an ethical, profitable company. Victoria is stealing money meant for educational programs, and now they're stealing your intellectual property. Imani's head snapped up. How did you... I review all new initiatives. Recognized your formulations immediately. Diane leaned forward. Show me. Hesitantly, Imani pulled out her phone, opening her patent application files. Diane examined them, eyes widening. This is brilliant, she murmured. Not just the chemical innovations, but the integrated systems approach. She looked up. They think we're invisible. That's about to become very expensive for them. I've been fighting this battle alone for years, Imani said. Why should I trust you now? Diane was silent for a moment. 15 years ago, Howard University. Professor Lawson's strategy class. Imani's breath caught. That was you? I never forgot that student who stood her ground despite every attempt to silence her. Diane smiled slightly. I've been watching your career, wondering why you never reached your potential. Now I understand who blocked your path. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership. You provide the evidence I need. I protect your daughter's position and ensure your patents remain yours. Diane held Imani's gaze, and together we take back the company from people who don't deserve to run it. That night, Imani made calls. First, to her lawyer, the one who'd helped with her patent applications, working pro bono because he believed in her innovations. Then to former classmates now in corporate positions. Finally, to other executives who'd been sidelined or targeted by Victoria. Patterns emerged. Alliances formed. A strategy developed. The following weekend, Imani and Tasha visited a boutique in Georgetown. The owner, a former Montgomery executive who'd left after Victoria orchestrated her removal, helped Imani select a gown for the gala elegant midnight blue, subtle yet commanding. You're really going through with this? Tasha asked as Imani tried on the dress. I am. Tasha adjusted the shoulder of the gown. Walk in like you already own the company, Mom. How will a cleaning lady outmaneuver people who've spent lifetimes stepping on others to get ahead? The Westford Hotel ballroom glittered with Washington, D.C.'s elite. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over tables adorned with white orchids and silver candelabras. A string quartet played Bach near the entrance where Victoria Montgomery Prescott greeted guests, resplendent in a designer red gown that probably cost more than Imani's annual salary. At $5,000 per plate, the event had raised over $2 million for the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund. Politicians, diplomats, and business leaders mingled, performing the careful dance of power and influence that governed Washington's upper echelons. James Montgomery stood nearby, checking his watch periodically, more concerned with potential investors than his wife's social triumph. Board members clustered in strategic corners, champagne flutes in hand, performative laughter masking business discussions. Diane Foster arrived alone, acknowledging Victoria with the barest minimum of social courtesy before moving into the room. Victoria's eyes narrowed at the slight, but her attention quickly shifted to the next arriving guests. At 8:17 p.m., exactly 17 minutes after the event's official start, the entrance doors opened once more. Imani Taylor stepped through in a midnight blue gown that draped perfectly over her shoulders, subtle silver threading catching the light with each movement. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, small diamond earrings, her mother's, saved for truly special occasions, completing the transformation. The sudden silence rippled outward from the entrance. Crystal glasses paused mid-air. The string quartet's music hung on a single sustained note. Victoria's greeting to another guest died mid-sentence as she turned toward the disruption. For 3 years, Victoria had looked through Imani, not at her. Now, recognition dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by outrage. Victoria moved to intercept, red gown swishing against the marble floor. "Staff uses the service entrance, honey." Diane appeared at Imani's side. "Victoria, I'd like to introduce my special guest and potential business partner, Imani Taylor." Victoria's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "She's our cleaning lady." "Tonight," Imani said, meeting Victoria's eyes directly, "I'm not here to clean. I'm here to collect." Imani moved past Victoria's stunned figure, Diane at her side. Conversations resumed, but eyes followed Imani's progress through the room. Whispers trailed in her wake. "Who is she?" "Montgomery's housekeeping manager." "Why is Foster introducing her as a business partner?" Imani navigated the social circles with unexpected ease, years of observing executive interactions from the periphery now serving her well. She knew which board members were allies, which were enemies, which were undecided. She knew their drinks of choice, their personal assistants' names, their children's colleges. Information gathered while invisible became power when visible. Victoria followed at a distance, attempting damage control. Temporary consultant, diversity initiative, Foster's pet project. James Montgomery, initially oblivious to the disruption, finally noticed the unfamiliar woman commanding attention across the room. He frowned, made his excuses from a conversation with investors, and approached. "Miss." "Foster," he nodded to Diane, then turned to Imani with practiced charm. "I don't believe we've met." He extended his hand. "James Montgomery." "We have met, actually," Imani replied, accepting his handshake with perfect poise. "Several times." Confusion flickered across his face. "Have we?" "You look familiar." "I've cleaned your office every night for 3 years," Imani said. "Before that, you rejected my job application. The view is different from where I'm standing now." James blinked rapidly, recalibrating. "I see. Well, welcome to our event. I hope you're enjoying yourself." "Immensely," Imani replied. "Though I'm curious about your new sustainability initiative. The one using my patented technology." The color drained from James's face. "I'm afraid I don't." "Your wife has been quite enthusiastic about presenting it as her own innovation," Imani continued smoothly. "Perhaps we should discuss appropriate licensing agreements." James glanced desperately toward Victoria, who was now watching their interaction with barely concealed panic. "There seems to be some confusion," he began. "No confusion," Diane interjected. "Miss. Taylor holds verified patents for the systems your wife is claiming credit for. We have documentation." "This isn't the appropriate venue," James started. "I agree," Imani said. "A courtroom might be more suitable." Harriet Williamson, Montgomery Industries' longest-serving board member, approached their circle. At 67, Harriet had weathered numerous corporate storms and recognized brewing trouble instantly. "James, Victoria seems distressed. Perhaps you should check on her?" Her dismissal was polite but firm. James hesitated, then retreated toward his wife. Harriet turned to Imani. "Miss. Taylor, is it? Diane speaks highly of your innovations." "Thank you, Miss." "Williamson, I've admired your leadership on the Sustainability Committee." Harriet's eyebrows rose slightly. "You follow our corporate governance?" "I follow everything about Montgomery Industries. I've had a vested interest for some time." The dinner bell chimed, saving Harriet from responding. Guests moved toward assigned tables, social hierarchy dictated by proximity to the Montgomery table. Imani found her name card at Diane's table close enough to the center to observe everything, far enough to avoid immediate confrontation. Through the first course, Victoria maintained her hostess persona, though her laughter grew more brittle with each glass of champagne. James huddled with board members between bites, glancing repeatedly at Imani and Diane. During the main course, Victoria could no longer contain herself. She stood abruptly, champagne flute in hand, tapping it for attention. "I'd like to thank everyone for supporting the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund," she began, voice carrying across the ballroom. "Your generosity helps disadvantaged youth access educational opportunities they'd never otherwise have." Polite applause rippled through the room. "I'm especially moved to see such diverse attendance tonight," Victoria continued, gaze fixing on Imani. "Everyone's curious how our cleaning lady afforded a $5,000 plate. Should I check the silverware count?" Shocked murmurs replaced applause. Imani remained perfectly still, face composed. Diane stood. "Since we're acknowledging special guests," Diane said clearly, "I'd like to request everyone's attention for a brief presentation relevant to tonight's fundraiser." Victoria's smile faltered. "We haven't scheduled any presentations." "Consider it breaking news," Diane replied, nodding to a hotel staff member who activated the ballroom's projection system. The first slide appeared a financial statement from the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund. "What are you doing?" Victoria hissed. "Financial transparency," Diane answered. "Critical for any charitable organization." The next slides detailed incoming donations juxtaposed with outgoing charitable work. The discrepancy was immediately apparent even to non-financial observers. "As you can see," Diane continued professionally, "of the $2.7 million raised last year, only $213,000 went to actual educational programs." Victoria lunged for the podium. "This is private foundation business." "Public charity, public records," Diane countered. "The remaining funds were directed to administrative expenses, specifically these offshore accounts." New slides appeared showing transfers to Cayman Islands accounts. Diane highlighted names on the documentation: Victoria's maiden name, her sister's married name, her mother's maiden name. "This is slander." Victoria's voice rose as she tried to block the screen, inadvertently knocking into a champagne tower. Glass shattered, liquid splashing across the pristine tablecloth. The room fell silent. James stood, damage control instincts kicking in. "Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse this unfortunate disruption. My wife is understandably upset by these baseless accusations." "Baseless?" Diane raised an eyebrow. "The SEC has received our full report, Mr. Montgomery, as have the major donors in this room." Murmurs grew louder. Several prominent donors stood making discreet exits. This is clearly a misunderstanding, James insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. Victoria's charitable work has always been separate from Montgomery Industries. The company bears no responsibility for any irregularities in foundation management. Interesting position, Imani said, rising from her seat. All eyes turned to her, especially considering Montgomery Industries' recent announcement about innovative cleaning technology developed by your wife's foundation. James froze. Would you like to see the original patent applications? Imani asked, voice carrying in the hushed room. Filed 3 years ago under my name, documented proof of Victoria's intellectual property theft attempt. That's absurd, James scoffed. You're a cleaning lady. I'm a Howard University MBA graduate with 3 patents pending, Imani corrected. And I've had interesting conversations with Apex Holdings and Westridge Development about licensing my technology. Your major competitors seemed quite impressed. The board members' expressions shifted from dismissive to calculating. Imani continued, but that's not all. My second patent covers a revolutionary sustainable building maintenance system that would reduce Montgomery Industries' operational costs by approximately 34% annually. Based on your current portfolios, that's roughly $47 million in savings per year. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. You thought I was beneath notice because I clean your messes. That's why you never saw me building something that could either save your company or help your competitors destroy you. The room had transformed. Where minutes before Imani had been an oddity, an intruder, now she commanded attention. Board members leaned forward. Investors whispered urgently to one another. Victoria, face flushed with rage and humiliation, turned to James. Do something! James straightened his tie, entrepreneur's mind already calculating new scenarios. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Ms. Taylor. No more private discussions, Imani replied. No more backroom deals. Here are my terms. She held up one finger. First, significant minority ownership stake in Montgomery Industries 12.5%, reflecting the value my technologies bring to the company. A second finger. Ethical Oversight Committee for all acquisitions with myself as chairperson, particularly focusing on acquisitions in historically disadvantaged communities. A third finger. A legitimate scholarship foundation for overlooked MBA candidates, properly managed with transparent financials. A fourth finger. Victoria's immediate resignation from all charity boards and company positions. James's laugh was strained. That's preposterous. The board would never... The board, interrupted Harriet Williamson, would like to review Ms. Taylor's patents immediately. Other board members nodded. We should adjourn to the conference room, suggested Robert Chen, another senior board member. This is outrageous, Victoria shouted. You're all going to believe a cleaning lady over me? The sound of Victoria's designer heels echoed sharply as she stormed away, parting the crowd of onlookers who stepped back as if her humiliation might be contagious. No one followed her. In the adjacent conference room, Imani presented her full patent portfolio to the assembled board members. Her cleaning system diagrams, chemical formulas, and efficiency calculations covered the table. The board listened with increasing interest as she explained each innovation. These formulations reduce toxic runoff by 82% compared to industry standards, Imani explained. The application system cuts labor hours by nearly a third while improving effectiveness. Board member Ellen Tanaka, head of the Sustainability Committee, examined the documentation closely. And you developed all this while working as our housekeeping manager? Yes. Nights, weekends, lunch breaks, 3 years of research and testing. Remarkable, Ellen murmured. More than remarkable, Diane added. Potentially transformative for both our operations and our market position. James Montgomery paced near the window, phone in hand, attempting to contact Victoria without success. His corporate instincts warred with personal loyalty. Miss Taylor, he said finally, while your innovations appear promising, Your demands are excessive. The board can't possibly. The board, Harriet Williamson interrupted again, will consider Ms. Taylor's proposals with the seriousness they deserve. She turned to Imani. We'll need time to verify these patents and assess their market value. Of course, Imani replied. My attorney has prepared documentation packets for each of you. Robert Chen leaned forward. You came prepared. I've had 3 years to prepare, mister. Chen outside the conference room, the gala continued in subdued confusion. Donors whispered about Victoria's charity fraud allegations. Victoria herself had disappeared entirely. After 2 hours of intense discussion, the board reached a preliminary decision. They returned to the main ballroom where remaining guests speculated wildly about the evening's dramatic turn. Harriet Williamson approached the podium. The Montgomery Industries Board has begun a thorough review of concerns raised this evening. We take allegations of financial impropriety and intellectual property rights extremely seriously. She continued, pending full investigation, we've approved initial terms with Ms. Imani Taylor regarding her innovative technology. Montgomery Industries is committed to ethical business practices and proper attribution of intellectual contributions. The subtle public acknowledgement sent ripples through the crowd. James Montgomery stood to the side, face carefully neutral despite the corporate coup unfolding before him. As guests departed, Imani found herself surrounded by business cards and invitations to continue the conversation. Investors who'd ignored her previous approaches now competed for her attention. With the tables dramatically turned, will Imani choose revenge or transformation? 3 months passed with the speed and force of a hurricane. The Montgomery Future Leaders Fund collapsed under SEC investigation. Victoria's offshore accounts were frozen. Criminal charges for charity fraud and attempted intellectual property theft loomed, her high-priced attorneys negotiating frantically for reduced penalties. News coverage proved relentless. The Washington Post ran a front-page business section story. From boardroom floor to boardroom table, how Imani Taylor exposed corporate exploitation. The Wall Street Journal followed with, Montgomery Industries faces reckoning after charity scandal. Forbes published a profile of Imani, the invisible innovator, how overlooked talent costs companies millions. Industry-wide examinations of similar exploitation patterns emerged. Other corporations began reviewing their vendor relationships and intellectual property protocols. The hashtag #Invisible Innovators trended as similar stories surfaced across industries. James Montgomery announced his early retirement at an emergency shareholder meeting. The board unanimously appointed Diane Foster as interim CEO. Montgomery Industries stock initially plummeted 17% before stabilizing as Diane's leadership inspired cautious investor confidence. Imani's patent licensing agreements were finalized, granting her 8.5% ownership stake, less than her initial demand but still worth millions. More importantly, she secured chairpersonship of the newly formed Ethics and Community Impact Committee, with oversight of all acquisitions in historically disadvantaged neighborhoods. The first committee meeting addressed the pending acquisition of Jackson Property Management. Instead of the predatory tactics originally planned, Imani facilitated a partnership that preserved the Black-owned business while expanding its resources and reach. This is how community-centered development should work, she told the board, lifting businesses up rather than swallowing them whole. Several board members who'd initially resisted her appointment now nodded in agreement. The financials supported her approach, sustainable growth over predatory profit. Her cleaning technology division launched with tremendous market interest. Major hotel chains and commercial property managers signed contracts for the eco-friendly system. Prestige Cleaning Services became the flagship implementation partner with Gerald Porter as division president. The Montgomery Taylor Scholarship Foundation renamed and restructured awarded its first grants to MBA candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. Imani insisted on transparency, with all financial records publicly accessible, and an independent board of trustees. Victoria Montgomery Prescott accepted a plea deal probation, significant financial penalties, and community service hours teaching financial literacy in low-income schools. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She'd moved to Palm Beach, largely disappearing from Washington social circles. James Montgomery had relocated to Arizona, starting a much smaller real estate development company with considerably more oversight and significantly less influence. Imani's first board meeting as Montgomery's newest director and chief innovation officer was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. She arrived at 8:15, entering through the main lobby rather than the service entrance for the first time. "Good morning, miss." Taylor, the security guard, greeted her, extending a permanent access badge. No more temporary service passes. The elevator ascended directly to the executive floor without service-level stops. The doors opened to reveal the reception area where she'd once emptied trash bins and dusted sculptures worth more than her annual salary. "Miss Taylor, welcome," the receptionist smiled. "The boardroom is ready for you." Imani nodded, continuing down the corridor where her cleaning cart had once scraped against the baseboard. Her office, formerly James Montgomery's corner suite, waited at the end of the hall, her name already etched on the door plaque. Inside, she found Diane reviewing documents at the conference table. "Ready for this?" Diane asked, looking up. "I've been ready for years," Imani replied, setting her briefcase on the desk. "The budget revisions for the maintenance division?" "Approved. Your cleaning system implementation is prioritized for all properties." "And the hiring initiatives?" "HR is processing this first wave of interviews for former cleaning staff interested in management training." Imani smiled. Gerald Porter's company had been awarded an expanded contract with Montgomery Industries, with requirements for fair wages, benefits, and advancement opportunities. Several of her former colleagues had applied for corporate positions once those doors opened. "The press conference?" Imani asked. "Scheduled for 2 p.m., after the board ratifies your appointment." The meeting proceeded with surprising smoothness. Board members who'd barely acknowledged Imani's existence now carefully considered her expertise. Her proposal for ethical investment guidelines passed unanimously. "Implementation will require systematic review of all current holdings," Harriet Williamson noted. "That's substantial work." "I've already begun the analysis," Imani replied, distributing detailed reports. "These properties in Southeast D.C. require immediate attention. The residents are facing displacement." The board members studied the documents with new eyes, seeing communities where they'd previously seen only profit margins. At the press conference, reporters crowded the Montgomery Industries lobby. Cameras flashed as Diane introduced Imani as the company's newest executive. "Miss Taylor brings exceptional innovation and ethical leadership to our team," Diane announced. When Imani stepped to the microphone, a reporter called out, "How does it feel going from cleaning the executive bathroom to having your own corner office?" The room tensed. Imani looked directly at the camera. "The most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate someone you've been taught to look down upon," she said calmly. "My position has changed, but my purpose hasn't. I've always been focused on improving systems and creating more efficient, ethical ways to operate. The only difference is now people are listening." The video clip went viral within hours. That evening, Imani visited Tasha at her Georgetown University apartment. Her daughter had continued her internship at Montgomery despite the upheaval, impressing senior managers with her financial acumen and unflappable composure during crisis. "Mom!" Tasha embraced her. "I saw the press conference. You were amazing." "I was terrified," Imani admitted, settling onto Tasha's couch. "Still am sometimes." "Could have fooled me." Tasha studied her mother. "You've never looked more like yourself." "I've never felt more like myself," Imani agreed. "Though sometimes I still reach for a cleaning cart out of habit." They laughed together, ordering takeout and discussing Tasha's upcoming graduation. When Imani's phone buzzed with an email from Diane about tomorrow's strategy meeting, Tasha shook her head. Chief Innovation Officer, not even 4 months. Already workaholic executive. Imani smiled. Just making up for lost time. The next morning, Imani arrived early to prepare for an investor presentation. The maintenance staff was finishing the overnight cleaning. Maria, who'd taken over as housekeeping manager, looked up in surprise. Miss Taylor, we didn't expect executives so early. Old habits, Imani replied. And please, it's still Imani to you. Maria nodded, gathering her supplies. Congratulations on the promotion. You deserve it. Thank you. Imani hesitated, then asked, how is everyone adjusting to the new procedures? The new equipment is amazing, Maria said enthusiastically. We finish in half the time with better results. And the educational stipends Luis has enrolled in business classes. Imani nodded, pleased. The employee development program had been her first initiative. I never asked, Maria continued hesitantly. How did you know so much about cleaning systems? Imani smiled. By doing the work others thought was beneath them. There's wisdom in every job if you're paying attention. As Maria left, Imani surveyed the gleaming boardroom. The same space where she'd once been invisible now awaited her leadership. The irony wasn't lost on her, how power could shift when the overlooked refused to remain unseen. 1 year later, Imani stood at the podium in the same Westford Hotel ballroom, addressing a very different gathering. The newly established Taylor Innovation Foundation's inaugural grant ceremony filled the room with entrepreneurs from historically overlooked communities. True power isn't in where you stand, Imani told the audience, but in refusing to be defined by it. The foundation had already funded 17 startups led by women and minorities, focusing on innovations that addressed community needs while creating sustainable business models. Tonight would add 12 more to that growing family. Montgomery Industries had transformed under Diane's leadership as CEO and Imani's influence as Chief Innovation Officer and board member. Their ethical business framework, now known in industry circles as the Taylor model, had been adopted by 3 other major corporations. Quarterly profits had initially dipped during the transition, but rebounded strongly as consumers and clients responded to authentic change. The company's cleaning technology division, built around Imani's patents, had become their fastest-growing revenue stream. The sustainability initiatives saved millions in operational costs while dramatically reducing environmental impact across their properties. After the ceremony, Imani circulated among the grant recipients, offering guidance and connections rather than just checks. Near the service entrance, she noticed a young woman in hotel uniform discreetly watching the proceedings while restocking a side table. Imani approached her. Enjoying the event? The woman straightened, surprised at being addressed. Yes, ma'am. It's inspiring. I'm Imani Taylor. She extended her hand. Gabriela Rodriguez. The handshake was hesitant but firm. I know who you are. Everyone here does. Are you interested in business, Gabriela? I'm studying sustainable architecture at community college, she replied, working here nights to pay tuition. Imani reached into her clutch, retrieving a cream-colored invitation card and her business card. She pressed both into Gabriela's hand. Our next entrepreneur workshop is Tuesday evening. Your ideas matter. Your position is temporary, but your potential is permanent. Gabriela stared at the cards. I couldn't possibly. I said those exact words once, Imani interrupted gently. I was wrong. So are you. Later that evening, Imani returned to Montgomery Tower for a final review of quarterly projections. The night security guard tipped his hat as she passed. The cleaning crew nodded respectfully, no longer invisible to executives, since Imani had implemented company-wide policies requiring all employees to be addressed by name. In the executive suite, she paused by a slightly crooked picture frame, a black and white photograph of Pinnacle Tower under construction decades ago. Without thinking, she straightened it, smiling at the ingrained habit. Inside the boardroom, tomorrow's presentation materials waited on the polished table where she'd once gathered confidential documents after hours. Imani adjusted the lighting, reviewed the key points, and made several notes to strengthen their impact. Her phone chimed with a text from Tasha. "Mom, remember to sleep sometimes. CEOs need rest too." Imani smiled. Tasha had graduated with honors and accepted a position with a minority-owned investment firm, declining offers from Wall Street giants. "Following your footsteps," she'd told Imani, "making the path wider for others." Before leaving, Imani stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Washington skyline. 3 years ago, she'd cleaned these windows after hours, invisible to the power brokers whose fingerprints she removed. Now her own reflection looked back at her, the woman she'd always been beneath the uniform, finally seen. Did this story move you? The journey from invisible to unstoppable is one we can all relate to. At Beat Stories, we bring you powerful real-life narratives that illuminate the human spirit's resilience. Stories like Imani's remind us that dignity can't be taken away, only surrendered. That sometimes the most powerful position is the one nobody notices, until it's too late. If you connected with this story of quiet strength and calculated justice, hit the like button to help more people discover it. Subscribe to Beat Stories for weekly content that showcases overlooked heroes rising up against impossible odds. From cleaning staff to CEOs, from shadows to spotlights, we share the stories that society needs to hear. Tag someone who deserves to be seen for their true potential, not just their current position. Comment below with your own experience of being underestimated, or share how you're making space for overlooked voices in your community. Beat Stories, where every voice matters and every story has power.
One story can wake up a crowd. One moment of clarity can crack years of silence. At Beat Stories, we find those moments, and we share them loud and clear. If this made you think, hit subscribe. This is just the beginning.